also, do you see any way, peaceful way out of this whole mess?
We have not discussed what historical,
any negotiation.
This was suggested by you last time to come at the very end. We did not discuss what historical circumstances, factors shaped the current condition.
Very good. We can start with that. Actually, you can jump into that, and then we will.
Chronologically, it goes like that has to come first before we talk about peaceful resolution. Okay.
Sure.
So what I like to do actually is, it's good also for your own audience that they should understand what gave rise to the present political situation in Ethiopia, what gave rise. So I've written so many articles on this. I've been doing so many interviews on this as well. So I see so many factors have contributed to the ascendance of the new regime in Ethiopia. The new regime is the Abiy regime, of course. The number one factor is the crisis within the APRDF. Crisis within the APRDF, meaning between 2016 and 2018. There was some kind of incorrect handling of contradiction within the party. And as a result, what I have seen, what I have wrote early on, in fact, that article was written in Tigray and it was published on what's a newspaper called Araia in Tigray. It was published there. And I said then there was a fifth column, a group of fifth column within the APRDF. That's what I sensed then. Because these guys were sabotaging the objectives, the agenda, and the mission of the APRDF itself. And then ultimately, we found out that Abiy himself told us that he was in INSA and then delivering information to the guys in Eritrea, like Burhanu Naga. So this is a clear fifth column thing, okay? They've been there. So I think the either the APRDF leaders did not sense the existence of such a group, or they might have underestimated them. You see, to underestimate your enemy is really bad. It's a bad thing, actually, it's a bad policy. And now, recently, I heard that, in fact, not only were these guys inside, within, built in, within the APRDF, they even are now bragging about it. They're saying that they've been preparing for the last 12 years to actually undermine the TPLF and ultimately oust the TPLF and then of course completely wipe out the APRDF itself. And then they've been preparing for the last 12 years, they said. So this is the major factor, the number one factor I see. But there are other factors. Other factors are, of course, as we all know, there was this disturbances in Gondar beginning 2016, 2017, confrontations, and then where a lot of Tigrayans were attacked in Gondar. And we've seen that ultimately the Kero Fano thing or the Oro Mara thing phenomenon. And people were saying uprisings, upheavals, uprisings, people's uprisings. But I do not subscribe to that portrayal of the upheaval. For me, it was essentially an unholy alliance between the Oromo and the Amhara to oust the TPLF. That was their agenda. And then I've written about it then in 2018, 2016 actually. And the movement was led by extremely vicious elements who were engaged in shooting and killing spree and burning public property. So many public properties were burned. A revolutionary uprising, a revolutionary people's uprising actually would not burn public property. They would not do it. So this was a good opportunity for Abiy, however. Okay. So ultimately, because of this chaos, the EPRDF had to do, they cannot do it all the time by controlling the state machinery only. They have to do something. They were talking about it. They want to reform it. And they came up with the idea to have a new prime minister. Okay? So before that, if you recall, early on, there was a huge demonstration in Bahir Dar, presided over by, what's his name? Gaddu. And the current vice prime minister was there too. That was huge demonstration actually was really symbolic of what was going on, of their agenda. First and foremost, they said, we do not accept the current constitution. And secondly, they were waving the old tricolor flag, not the EPRDF flag with a star inside. And then what surprised me actually was some of them were waving Eritrean flag in Bahir Dar. And some of them were holding a placard that bears the picture of Mengistu Haile Mariam. This was a clear departure from the EPRDF policies and aspirations. You see that? That people were not paying attention at all. A lot of people were not paying attention. It was a clear departure from the EPRDF, actually. It was very clear. So what happened? Following all these turmoils and demonstrations and the Cairo, whatever, Fano thing, Abiy came to power. It was really very convenient. They have gone to the parliament. It was a smooth transition. And one of the qualities that this guy have is his deceptive manners. He's very deceptive. He smiles, all those things. He talks about love and unity and forgiveness. And then the Madammer thing, that's short-lived actually, the Madammer slogan, that's short-lived. Yeah. He's master of disguise. But now he's not doing that now. If you see in the last parliament, he was not even smiling at all. He's so serious. His face is so serious now. Okay, so this happened now. But what we do in my field, we don't take for granted in the academia. We don't take it for granted at all. So what we do actually is we examine things from the framework, the methodological framework of political science and history. Okay, so the ultimate aim of political science is to identify the general laws and processes in a country. Identify them. So that actually now leads you to understand the nature and characteristics of the regime, of the government. If you remember, for instance, there were so many symptoms, by the way, symptomatic things. Abiy Ahmed were flying to Asmara back and forth. What was he doing by going back and forth to Asmara? It was secretive. And both of them have gone to Saudi Arabia, to the United Arab Emirates. And the three of them, if you remember, in Bahir Dar, Isaias and then Farmajo and Abiy, it was a secret meeting. So they had this agenda. And then you have to link those things with the blockade of Tigray, closing all streets that lead to Tigray, all roads that leads to Tigray. And during the COVID crisis and during the locust invasion of Tigray, Tigray did not get any service from the federal government, any service. It was done on purpose. And ultimately, they even cut the budget that was supposed to be given to Tigray. So that shows you actually they were really getting ready to attack Tigray. It was obvious to me. I mean, all the symptoms were there. So, but people have this propensity to take things for granted, and then to granted the aura and appeal of a leader. They were saying Abiy, 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 and now things have changed now, by the way. It's down with Abiy now. Down with Abiy. It's no longer Abiy, Abiy, Abiy. Okay? So we have to see those things. So many factors have now contributed to the coming of Abiy, and then other factors have now contributed to the downfall of Abiy, because he attacked Tigray. He took it for granted that he will do away with Tigray and he will stay in power forever. But that's not the case. He underestimated the people of Tigray, actually, really. So that's how I view it anyway. So you want to continue now with what he started early on.
Yeah, very interesting. So this, because of this background to this, to how things came to a head, the background he gave us, and we've seen the world believing that the Tigray forces started it all on 4 November when they attacked the Northern Command. So, given the background, the context that you just elaborated, why do you think many people tend to believe, or at least to consider this as something that triggered the war? Although you say that there was already a build-up, a conspiracy going on behind the scenes to attack Tigray. And together with that, would you tell us how Abiy fared in terms of the narrative of war, the war of narrative, rather?
Okay, interesting. You see, the thing is this: we all know now, of course, that the attack on what Abiy said, actually, they've attacked our defense forces in Tigray. As a result, we're gonna go to war. But actually, long before that happened, on November 4, 2020, was a declaration. A week before that, actually, the Amhara militia and Fano and the Ethiopian Defense Forces, National Defense Forces, were already in Tigray. So the fighting already had begun. So whether the Tigrayan forces attacked the Northern Command or not would not make sense. It's not going to be like the cause for the war, as Abiy had. But to some extent, it worked for him because it mobilized the people, and they managed to mobilize the people by saying that they've attacked our Northern Command. I remember very well the President Sahle-Work saying that we are now being attacked by our own domestic enemy. You see, and she repeated the same thing last time when Abiy was being sworn in the parliament. She gave a long speech and she said, we're being attacked by a foreign enemy and a domestic enemy. Whoever that foreign enemy is, I don't know. The domestic is obvious to me. Okay? So they came up with that thing. They have to say something anyway in order to conduct war in Tigray, in order to justify their actions. That's what they've done, actually. But anyway, even after doing all those things, after even managing to bring other forces like the Eritrean forces, the Somali forces, and the United Arab Emirates thing, they could not successfully achieve their goals. Actually, they could not do it. They've done so many things in Tigray. Of course, they've destroyed many parts of Tigray. They've committed genocide. We all know that. But in the end, actually, they lost. They lost. So.
So the war of narratives aspect, if you can dwell on that as well, because also following that Northern Command story, the issue of Mykadra also served to mobilize the public.
Exactly.
So how did Abiy Ahmed use the war of narratives to advance his agenda?
Well, look, the Mykadra thing, for instance, when Abiy said it was the Tigrayan people who did that, or TPLF did that. Some people in the international community were confused. Even Amnesty International, actually, I remember very well, when those things were said, they said Tigray is responsible. And we wrote them, actually, then. Me and my friends wrote them. You are wrong. You have to investigate what's on the ground. You don't know anything. You cannot simply imbibe or take for granted what Abiy told you. Okay? And later on, they investigated it, of course. Okay? And the Mykadra thing, the refugees that escaped from Mykadra to Sudan, they were interviewed too. So they said they came to our houses. It was like evening, and then they were asking for ID cards. If you are a Tigrayan or a Tigrinya name, they either kill you or do something. And they even said, one said actually, kill them, they are Tigrayans. So what does that mean? You see, but if you flip it over, and then you have to have this media that can sell it for you, so the external audience, to the international community. In that case, they were successful, actually. And they lie and lie and lie all the time. Because it's not just Abiy. Dina Mufti lies all the time. And Redwan Mahdi do the same thing.
Redwan Hussein.
Redwan Hussein, yeah, do the same thing. And they sell it via their diplomatic channels to the outside world. But now increasingly, that became actually counterproductive. Why? More and more, the Abiy regime is isolated. More and more, Ethiopia is isolated from the international diplomatic community. More and more. It did not work. You can come with certain narratives, you can lie and lie and lie, but ultimately, the international community is going to know. And I give credit to the Tigray diaspora in this regard, because they've done their best to actually communicate with their congresspeople, their senators, their member of parliaments. They made them aware, actually, especially the Irish parliament, always advocated on behalf of Tigray. It's because of the diaspora, Tigray, actually. So they've done their best.
Yeah. Now we will be moving to your perspective regarding what should happen going forward. But just recently, Alexander Rondos, who was the EU special representative to the Horn of Africa, and another scholar also who was with the Clinton administration, wrote an article in which they proposed a Dayton-style this what happened in Bosnia and how it was resolved, the Dayton Accord type solution to the problem in Ethiopia currently. What do you make of that? Do you see any value to this proposal?
Well, certain proposals can work for certain places. They may not work for other places. But
they appreciated the difference. They actually appreciated the difference between the two, but they said that can be adapted to the Ethiopian context.
Yes. So that's how I sense it too. So the adoption is the thing. It's possible. It can be used in Ethiopia as well. However, now what I see is this. This Abiy guy, I don't know how I can define him. He's a weird political animal, contradictory, and then what he says today doesn't repeat it tomorrow. So you cannot completely rely on the Abiy-led government. But if it's true, I've heard on, when was that? A couple of days ago, the Ethiopian Foreign Ministry actually came up with a proposal to negotiate and peacefully settle the current problem. If it's true, I don't know. But if they have that agenda, why do they bombard Tigray? Why do they bombard all those things? Why do they want to escalate the war? See, that's the contradiction I see now. So, but it's highly possible, the more it's cornered, the more the government is going to say, okay, we'll come to the round table. Because I told you early on, if a shift of power determines everything. So that's one possibility. I see it as a possibility though. I cannot completely say for granted that Abiy is going to sit down and negotiate with what he labels his enemies, the Tigray forces and the Benishangul and Afar and others. But he may be forced to do it. It's possible. If that is possible, it's good for the country too, by the way, because war is going to stop. There could be some relative, everything is relative, as you know, relative peace in the country, okay? So it might work, I don't know, but I'm not so optimistic about it.
So what, in your opinion, works? Your own perspective of the...
My opinion, my thing is this. You see, by the way, talking about peaceful resolution to conflicts, I have written so many articles on that. In fact, a month before Abiy declared war on Tigray, I rewrote an article that I wrote a long time ago. The title is National Reconciliation and Development in Ethiopia. And then I sent that article to the Ministry of Peace, where Mefriat is. Is that her name? Mefriat?
Yeah, Mefriat Kamil, yes.
Mefriat, yeah. And then whoever that person is from that office said it's a good article. But I doubt it very much whether they have read it or not, because they were preparing for war. They were not going to give it due attention to that kind of article. So the reason I'm telling you this now is I, as a scholar, and in principle as well, always want to have this dialogue. Dialogue is really, really good. It's civil, it's peaceful, it's human. So I wish we could have peacefully resolved negotiating round table or whatever between the forces are fighting and the Abiy regime. But my opinion is it's not going to happen. I could be wrong, but it's not going to happen because Abiy is stubborn. His advisors are stubborn as well. So it's going to be resolved by military force, it seems to me.
Okay, now finally to the issue of accountability. So all these injustices, all these atrocities,
Yeah.
do you think there will be accountability? Will not people get away with it? And also your comments on the joint investigation of the violations and abuses in Tigray by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and also the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, whose report will be out. It will be presented to the, Human Rights Council of the UN in Geneva after 10 days. What's your take on that?
Well, anyway, I and my group here in the diaspora, especially in the United States, came up with the idea early on, and we even filed a charge against Isaias and Abiy to the International Crime Court, ICC. And we were actually dealing with them like several times. They wrote us 2 times. It was delayed for some time because they've committed genocide. So we want them to come to the ICC. That's what, but ultimately the response that we got was they've seen all the evidences actually really that the genocide was committed. But the problem with the United Nations Security Council was they were not even talking about genocide. They were not even, let alone bringing these guys to the ICC. Some of them are not signatories at all, like the United States. However, the Rome Statute actually says it doesn't matter whether a country is a member or not. They abide by the law. They have to abide by the law. If they commit genocide, they will be accountable for that. Okay, so I don't know what they're going to do, but it's sometimes what they do is like they've done for the issue surrounding Darfur in Sudan. They brought these unknown figures and they brought them before the courts. They might do the same thing for the Ethiopian thing too, because I've heard that some people are going to come before the court, but probably unknown figures as well, not like Abiy, not like Ghelawdewos, and like others.
Can you shed some light on that? Who are from which countries? Is it from Ethiopia or also from Eritrea, and
Eritrea,
who is bringing them to court? Who is pushing this from behind?
Which one? Can you paraphrase that one?
I mean, can you shed more light on this issue of bringing some people, even if they are of less position?
The Sudan in Sudan. I was talking about Darfur.
You were talking about Darfur all the way, or you were also referring to Ethiopia now?
I was referring to Ethiopia too, but let me clarify that. With respect to Darfur, the ICC itself has now opened an office in Khartoum. They are actually investigating who was responsible, who is accountable for all the genocide. Okay, so and then ultimately they said that some people are going to come before the courts, face justice. And for the Ethiopian thing, it's a new thing, and I don't rely on social media, unfortunately, because if you're a scholar, you have to have certain level of doing some research and what have you. But it was Lideto Ayalo and others who came up with the idea that some 43 people from the Ethiopia are going to come before the ICC. But it was a short thing, no explanation how it came about and who initiated it, doesn't say anything. So I dismissed it as a social media thing, you know. I don't want to rely on that. So, but it could be possible too. I don't know. I have no idea.
And your view regarding the joint investigation into the human rights violations in Tigray by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. Their report will be presented to the Geneva Human Rights Council 10 days later.
Yeah, that one is a good thing. We only had an objection to the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. When I say we now, I'm talking about the Tigray Global Advocacy Group. We've accepted that of the United Nations Human Rights Council. And the lady that was leading it actually have gone to Tigray herself. And then we said, we proposed that they should not rely on the Ethiopian human rights thing. I mean, how far independent they are, we don't know. And we propose that they should investigate the realities on the ground in Tigray by themselves, the UN Human Rights Council. That's what we propose to them. But now they have enough data with respect to what happened to Tigray, genocide, atrocities, and rape of women, and what have you. We've also supplied some information to some international agencies, including how many women were raped in Tigray, how many farms and industries were destroyed, how many people were killed, like many places like the St. Mary Church or Mariam Dungalat or Mahabere Dogo. You can go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, but Professor, but they haven't gone to, most of these places. Of the 12 places they said they went and investigated in, they also included Addis Ababa, Bahar Dar, Gondar, and also the 3 places like Adugoshu, Humara, Maikadra, in which most of the people actually most of them have left the place or either killed, fled to Sudan, or internally displaced. So those who remain there cannot, with confidence speak out. Yeah. And they didn't go to places like Aksum. They admitted to having not gone there, and also not Humara, the Mariam Dangalat, Mahabara and other places.
Yes.
Although they could have gone there because it was under the government, control at that time.
Exactly. That's the whole idea, because we ourselves were dismayed actually by the fact that they didn't go to all these places. And by not going to those places, I mean, how are they going to make an assessment, the right assessment? So we said, this is happened in Tigray. So we're giving you information. We're cooperating with you. We told them, actually, I personally have written to the United Nations Human Rights Council. If you simply go by what you've done so far, it's going to be very superficial of the reality in the ground. It's not going to be enough, we told them, actually. But there is also the European External Program, based in Belgium. They have amassed so many data about Tigray. So many articles, so many things about genocide. They too want to cooperate with them. They can get it via them too, okay? Otherwise, if they don't accept our initiative or the European External Program and the Human Rights and Watch and Amnesty International and others, they have to gather information from all of them. Otherwise, their thing is going to be, I mean, ultimately, they're not going to be successful, or they're not going to accomplish what we wish them to accomplish. They're going to do it. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, from the composition of the, from the selection of the places they visited
Yes.
For the investigation, there are people who worry that they may be inclined to just do some, unrealistic balancing act.
Yeah. You see, that's what I don't like about the Western world. And believe me, I've lived here almost my entire adult life. There are so many good things about democracy and what have you, but there's so much incredible hypocrisy going on in this world as well. So they give you this kind of spoken word, but there is no action. They don't do it. In fact, they by default they cooperate with the people who committed all these atrocities. It's actually the same thing going on, or justify their actions as well. I mean, this has happened many times. So, I mean, we live in a very intriguing and complicated world anyway, as you know.
Professor Ghelawdewos, Araia, thank you very much for these very analytical perspectives, and really appreciate for taking the time to, cover all these broad areas, give us very elaborate reflections. Thank you.
I thank you so much too, Mr. Mekelle. And I think we've done a good discussion today, but we might continue next time. Because
yeah, sure. It would be a pleasure for me, and very great for our audience also to, from time to time to, ask you to give us your perspectives.
Absolutely. I thank you so much.
Thank you.